about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Dahlia Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Dr. Dahlia Show. 1-877-Dr. Dahlia, 1-877-DOCDALI. So this was some very worrisome news. Savannah Guthrie, I believe NBC Today's Show morning host and anchor, apparently her mother is reported missing. And her mother, from what we understand, was very healthy. No dementia, anything like that. And now we're being told that the house or the home is being considered a crime scene. And so I just want to give you guys the latest on that. Savannah Guthrie is NBC's Today anchor. Her mom is 84 years old, was reported missing from her home in, I believe, Tucson, Arizona. And homicide detectives were sent to the home of her mom. Her mom's name is Nancy Guthrie. Standard protocol, but foul play has not been ruled out. And we've been just told that now her home is being considered a possible crime scene, according to Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos. They said search and rescue teams, including volunteers, dogs, Border Patrol agents, and helicopters, were also dispatched overnight. Nanos said, we've pretty much just thrown everything at this as we can. Now, Miss Guthrie's mom was last seen Saturday around 9:30 p.m. near her residence in Catalina Foothills in Tucson, and a family member called 911 around noon Sunday to report her missing. She has some physical ailments, but no cognitive issues. It's a concern that a lot of people have, that their parents or family members may go wandering. I had a family member, a grandparent, who would wander outside, and it's frightening to think that they could get abducted or they could get killed, and God knows what happened. But in this particular case, they say she didn't have dementia. So now, was she abducted? What happened? Nano said this particular case stood out due to what was found at the house. We don't know what was found at the house. I'm sure we're going to be getting more details soon. But he didn't elaborate more, except saying that the scene was, quote unquote, very concerning. So everybody's sending prayers. If anybody has information, to contact the Pima County Sheriff's Department at 520-351-4900. That's 520-351-4900. In addition, Jenna Bush Hager, also Today's Show host, said that her mom, or Savannah Guthrie's mom, does not have the daily medication she needs to survive. Savannah Guthrie lost her father before her senior year of high school, so she's very, very close with her mom. When you hear of something like this, it's obviously extremely concerning. We sadly have a situation, or we live in a society where kids are being abducted, people trafficked, and I'm not saying her mom was abducted, but this is something that sadly goes on ubiquitously. And fortunately for the Guthrie family, there's these resources where they can have the helicopters and the dogs and all that. But it's scary to think that this is happening to many, many more people. And are we ever finding them? Also concerning is, how many older individuals may appear to be of great mental health, but then become delirious or develop a fast, shall we say, very quickly progressing dementia. The difference between dementia and delirium is more acute, and it can happen acute onset from like infection or medications or something very abruptly, whereas dementia usually takes some time. And so unfortunately, even if somebody, let's say, has been known to be healthy, and I'm not saying this in this case with Miss Guthrie's mom, but in general, people will say, I think my family's good. They don't have dementia, so I don't think they're going to wander, but they could, unfortunately, sometimes go into delirium. And it could be something as simple as a UTI. In fact, whenever we have an older individual who seems to have altered mental state, the first thing we do is check for infection, and we check for their medications and check to make sure they didn't accidentally overdose on their medications, or they weren't given a dud, or something that could be amiss. And so, unfortunately, in this particular case with the Guthrie family, The police are suggesting that something was found at the home, or the home scene suggested that they needed all hands on deck. So I pray for her mom. I hope that they find her. People have asked, as it pertains to dementia in older individuals, how many of us are going to get dementia later? How common is a dementia or the loss of your cognitive abilities as you age? So we don't have an exact number, but they say roughly currently about 10% of those over 65 have some form of dementia. Now, that doesn't mean there's a 1 in 10 chance of you getting dementia, but that's a pretty large number, that 10% do. Now, we also have to understand that that number might not be inclusive of those that haven't been diagnosed. And again, this is now a different topic. We're not necessarily suggesting that Miss Guthrie's mom had this, but whenever we hear of a senior that's not coming home, obviously that brings up a question. And so I was asked, how often does, shall we say, dementia happen? According to Google AI, only 1.7% to 3% of those age 65 to 74 are affected. It rises up to 13% for those between 75 and 84. And dementia appears to be at 35% for those 90 and older. They say the lifetime risk after age 55 is estimated to be at 42%. So that doesn't mean you're definitely going to get it, but it does mean that dementia can happen. But remember, dementia is a very broad term. So if we let's say, think that somebody is starting to lose their keys or lose some of their memory, that could be a very, very mild form of it, losing their hearing, having issues with their eyesight. And so there might be individuals diagnosed with that, but they're still very highly functional. Of course, many of us worry about ever becoming non-functional. And sadly, I had a family member who would wander outside, take off their clothes. That I don't want to be that, that person. I mean, you guys have already seen me disrobed enough. You don't definitely want to see that when I'm older. Now, I'm joking, but it's frightening. And, we talk about dementia and trying to protect yourself. One of the most important things, though, that I think we all need to do, and again, pray for the Guthrie family, is have close social support and close contacts so that if something is wrong and you are missing, somebody knows. And thank God a family member called 911. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Don't go away. Dr. Dahlia here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
Hi, it's Mark Falter, host of the Financial Fitness Show. I strongly believe that no one should ever pay 1 penny more in taxes than they are legally obligated. Unfortunately, for most hardworking Americans, this just isn't the case. Why? Because most people spend more time planning next weekend's getaway than trying to ensure they're going to pay less in taxes. My financial fitness team has put together some materials that I know are going to help you. It's the Tax Savings Kit. Tax Savings Kit includes 3 things: free tax analysis, top 10 ways to pay less in taxes, and an investor's guide to taxes. Now, how do you get it? Simple. 866-764-2635. Again, 866-764-2635. I'm Mark Falter. This is Financial Fitness, making personal finance profitable.
Welcome back. We are back on the Dr. Dolly Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. Dolly, 1-877-DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to you all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Dahlia, Facebook, The Dr. Dahlia Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So we're back in another government shutdown. It's partial, but apparently we are on day 3 of this. The House of Representatives are going to take up the Senate's federal funding compromise later today. The House Rules Committee, the final gatekeeper, I guess, for most of this legislation to get a chamber-wide vote, is supposed to happen at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. However, because we're in a shutdown, we're being told that 14,000 air traffic controllers are not getting paid right now. Again. The Department of Transportation keeps getting caught up in all this, and I don't understand why we don't have a better system. And from what we understand, the both sides of the aisle are demanding certain things be included in this when it should really just be a clean bill about funding. Speaker Micah Johnson told Fox News Sunday that he was optimistic that the shutdown would end tomorrow. But the full House has to consider the bill and approve, I guess, what the Senate has passed. House Republicans want to fast-track the spending bill via suspension of the rules, foregoing 2 key procedural hurdles for a vote on passage Monday night in exchange for raising the threshold for that passage from a simple majority to 2/3 of the chamber. But 100 House Democrats or more would be needed for such a plan to succeed, and 5 Republican lawmakers told Fox News Digital over the weekend that Hakeem Jeffries made clear to Johnson that he would not get the votes. So according to Hakeem Jeffries, he said what is clear is that the Department of Homeland Security needs to be dramatically reformed, adding that the Senate bill is a meaningful step in the right direction. So what's happening with this is there's this procedural hurdle vote called a rule vote. And adopting a rule on the House floor allows lawmakers to debate and then vote on a final passage for any given measure. All you need is simple majority. But rule votes tend to fall along partisan lines, so Johnson needs every House Republican to vote, and I believe that they are down to maybe a majority of 1. New Representative-elect Christian Menefee is a Democrat from Texas who won a special election over the weekend to succeed the late Representative Sylvester Turner. Now, I believe Sylvester Turner was Democrat also, but his ascension means that the Republicans can only lose 1 vote to still pass legislation on party lines. I think there's still like a 2-person majority. I haven't been keeping up to date on that, and I apologize. But there's a Senate deal, and a part of this deal has to do with the Department of Homeland Security. The Senate compromise would fully fund the Departments of War, Health and Human Services, Transportation, Education, and Labor through September 30th, lining up with previously passed spending bills. But DHS funding would only see current levels extended for 2 weeks in order to give Democrats and Republicans time to negotiate a bill that would some more, significantly address what's going on with immigration. And so the Democrats are very, very concerned about what's been happening in Minneapolis. I don't understand why the mayor and the governor are not having peaceful assembly in an area that's not where operations are happening. You know, if you're seeing a firefighter, a police officer, an ICE agent, an FBI, if you see some sort of an operation happen, you got to keep bystanders out of the way. And if bystanders are getting into it, and sadly, bad things are going to happen. And we've had now 2 people die. Alex Preddy, a nurse who somehow was, I guess, involved in ruckuses with ICE agents, and then Renee Good, who her and her vehicle got in the middle of, and I don't understand why the city isn't trying to encourage the protesters to get away from this. Instead, it looks like they're almost encouraging people to engage with armed officers. An absolute mess, absolutely ridiculous. But the Constitution, and our current government has, immigration policies, just like China, just like Canada, just like Mexico, just like Japan. And so deportation happens in all countries. It's happening at a higher level now because of what happened with Biden and the border. So now this is going to be a point of contention as it pertains to funding. They say, in addition to conservatives' concern, according to Fox News, that they're giving away leverage to Democrats, other Republicans like Representative Ana Paulina Luna are threatening to hold up legislation unless an unrelated but popular bill on requiring proof of citizenship in the voter registration process is not included. So lawmakers are hoping that this shutdown will be brief. They do not want active duty service members again to lose out on paychecks. They don't want federal healthcare services slowing down. They don't want any more airport delays. The government's previous shutdown that happened last year was, I believe, I thought it was the second longest in history, but they're saying it was the longest, ending after 43 days. And, come on, do we really have to go through all this again? But I believe this is going to be longer than tomorrow because the Democrats are really, really excited about the midterms. They think they're going to be able to have the majority in the House. And if they could slow down anything the current Republican majority House can do, I think they're going to want to do that. As far as where we go with the Department of Homeland Security, they have been doing some amazing work in terms of finding Tren de Aragua cartel members, securing the border, but having 2 American citizens die. Even if they weren't supposed to be there, they had no business engaging with armed officers. But still, 2 Americans are dead as a result of what Biden had done and what Trump's response has had to be. And so there has to be a better way. I really put the onus on Minneapolis's mayor and governor, Minnesota's governor, because it is their duty to ensure that bystanders, protesters, peaceful assembly is not intervening or in the way or in a proximity of a operation that could be dangerous for non-trained individuals. See, as a physician, if there is a medical scene, bystanders, get out, move, get away. We have work to do. We cannot do work with you there. You could get blood splashed on you. You could get hurt. All right. Let us trained professionals be here. But instead, there's been this encouragement to have bystanders get in between and interweave and block and obstruct and cause mental torture with whistles and all sorts of things. Where's leadership? And when you speak to individuals, whether they're Democrat, Republican, they know what's going on. They know that the scenes of the chaos helps one particular party more than another, but it doesn't help American citizens. American citizens think that, or whoever these individuals are that are trying to obstruct ICE, they think we're safe because they're not allowed to touch us. It's like I can yell and scream at a bully, and I don't know what happened with the Alex Pretty fight. I don't know why he came armed. I don't know why we're being told he was disarmed, but then he still got shot. Did he reach for a weapon? Did somebody was, I guess, pepper sprayed? I mean, what chaos ensued? That's on the city. Get these bystanders away from operations and from individuals who are armed. When you see a cop pull somebody over and arrest them, if you try to go up to go, hey, what's going on? What can I see? Other officers say, get out of the way. They're having you get out of the way so you aren't in danger. Leave, move, get away. And how are they supposed to perform what they need to perform and do while they're also trying to protect citizens? That's on the city. The city needs to move the protesters away. So now there's this, well, defund ICE. Well, abolish ICE. Well, people just don't understand. Every country has an immigration policy, and every country has to have a means to ensure that somebody not taking advantage or not bringing in criminals or not spying or individuals that do those things can be deported. Obama deported a lot of people. When you listen to Obama and you listen to Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton for years, discussing, you can't be here if you're illegal. You're going to be deported. They sounded exactly like anybody else in any other country. Yet when Kristi Noem says it or President Trump says it, oh, no way. So we need to get this together. And unfortunately, the shutdown is going to probably go longer because Democrats are going to try to tie ice to this. 1-877 Doc Dolly, don't go away.
Looking for a gift that can actually help secure someone's future? It's Mark Falter's new book, Common Sense Income Strategies. It makes the perfect gift for that special someone in your life. Mark has helped thousands of hardworking Americans secure their financial future by using time-tested strategies that continue to create wealth, whether the market is up or down. Strategies that will make perfect sense once you take the time to read this powerful book. Common Sense Income Strategies brings to you what Mark has been teaching in person and talking about on the radio for decades. You've worked too long and too hard not to see the fruits of your labor. To learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635. Secure your future with Common Sense Income Strategies by Mark Falter. Again, to learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635.
Back on the Dr. Dolly Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dolly, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So many of us have been sick the last few months. In fact, I've had patients who got sick before Thanksgiving, got sick around Christmas, got sick in January, and now we're trying to get ready for Super Bowl, trying to get ready for Valentine's Day, and sick again. It's pretty frustrating. And I have found this last cough, cold, flu season very unique in that whenever I've taught you guys the difference between flu and COVID and a simple cold, there were some pretty easily recognizable distinctions. So with a cold, you don't usually get a high fever. Now, the symptoms don't seem to necessarily hit you all at once. They might kind of wax and wane a little bit and then go away 5 to 7 days. With COVID, some of the symptoms may come on quickly, but they evolve and they morph throughout the, first 2-3 days. With COVID, unfortunately, you can have a higher fever, not usually as high as flu. Usually we see with COVID a fever under 102.5, but there's been some cases of people getting higher fevers. It happens. And unfortunately with COVID, those symptoms don't go away in 5 to 7 days. For some people, it could go on for weeks, which is why we recommend Paxlovid or treatment if you are immunocompromised. And flu used to be much more unique than COVID or a cold. Flu, as I've said, you would be able to tell me the time of day you got sick. You were feeling perfectly well, went to lunch, had an after lunch meeting, then you got back to your desk at 2, and at 2:05 is when you got sick. I mean, and it hit you hard. High fever, body aches, cough, sore throat. And then you would be down for the count, not able to move, horrible feeling, chills, sweats, feeling like death took over you for a few days. And then you start feeling better between day 5 and 7 and you're done. This flu season has been a little unique. We've had people test positive for flu without a fever. I've rarely seen flu without a fever. And I understand some of us might run cold. Remember I told you this 98.6 body temperature is now being debated and reevaluated because they don't think 98.6 is the average normal body temperature. And I have noticed for years with myself that I've always run 96, 97. If I am 98.9 or 99 degrees, I am burning up. That's a high fever for me because I run lower. So when I would go to the doctor and, they would test my temperature, go, oh, no fever. I'm like, but feel me. I'm burning up. I'm more warm than I am. Yeah, but you're only 99. Well, I started lower than that. So I understand that they are going to reevaluate this 98.6. For now, it's still 98.6 is quote-unquote normal temperature, but some people run lower. And some people might not run fevers. I don't usually get fevers when I'm sick. I usually get all the other symptoms. But with this particular flu, we're noticing some people are having a high fever, some people a mild fever, and some people no fever at all. We're also seeing that the at-home flu tests and COVID tests sometimes pick it up and sometimes they don't. We've had patients where they tested negative at home, only to go to the doctor's office or urgent care and then test positive there. And so it's been a very inconsistent sort of season and not as predictable. Many individuals who I've diagnosed with flu because they've taken a flu test over the counter have had their flu shot. I still recommend the flu shot because it can mitigate worsening flu and it could hopefully lessen the course. And even if it's only 16% effective this year, that's still better than nothing. That means there's still a chance to, mitigate your flu or prevent flu 16% of the time. But it's just been different. So the issue people are having is they start off with the sore throat, scratchy throat. They get the sinus issues. They get the cough. They get the malaise, feeling awful, feeling sick. They get the body aches. And then the cough can sometimes last for days, if not weeks. Many people are calling telemedicine, wanting antibiotics. And sometimes a doctor might say, here's an antibiotic, go for it. Well, most individuals, most doctors, though, will say, no, we're not supposed to. We're not supposed to treat flu or viruses with antibiotics. When I get asked, how come I feel better with an antibiotic then? And I believe the patients because I've taken Z-Paks and it's overnight. In fact, later that day, I feel better. Is it placebo? Is it that there's an anti-inflammatory type of effect that somehow those antibiotics are making you feel better? I see that with women who don't have a UTI, but they take an antibiotic and all of a sudden the burning goes away. Is there some sort of mechanism that we don't understand that is causing people to not feel their symptoms as much? And that's why they want antibiotics. But I don't blame people for asking for antibiotics. It's just, unfortunately, with all the antibiotic resistance and the overuse, it's getting harder and harder to be prescribed one if you don't have a bacterial component. Now, on the other end, I have had patients call up saying their doctor gave them antibiotics and they aren't better. Well, if it's a virus, yeah, many antibiotics won't work. Antibiotics work on bacteria. So if you're cold or cough or flu or whatever is viral, no, it's the antibiotics will not work. But you want to feel better. You want to be able to eat, drink, sleep. You want to get back out there. I was talking about cough syrups and cough medication, how cough medication used to have alcohol as an antitussive property. We stopped that because people were abusing their cough medicines. And then in the 80s and 90s, cough medicine with narcotics became very popular. And as a physician, I have to say, those worked. It wasn't ideal because we didn't want people abusing cough syrups for narcotics. And many people did abuse them. But on the other end, 1 teaspoon of your Phenergan VC with codeine or your Pan-Cough PD or whatever, you would be able to sleep at night. You weren't coughing the whole time, and then you were less inflamed the next day. Now that we have gone away from that because of all the narcotic overuse and dependency and tolerance and abuse, now what's happening is people are coughing throughout the night, and now they're asking for steroids, they're asking for antibiotics, and their cough is going on. And you wonder, we need to come up with something that acts similarly but is not a narcotic, where 1 teaspoon allows you to sleep through the night, allows you to stop coughing, not have the inflammation, unfortunately, now that most people don't have a regular primary care, they go online, so they try to get steroids or antibiotics, and sometimes it doesn't help. So the H3N2 subclade K is making up the largest portion of the flu that's circulating right now. And so you are typically contagious about 5 to 7 days after symptoms start. However, I also think you're contagious before you get your symptoms. So rule of thumb is you're contagious 2 days before you even feel sick. But that's, if you're not sick now, how do you know if you're contagious, right? But if you have a family member who was close to you and now you're on day one of your illness and you test positive for flu, we recommend that family members get treated preemptively for flu because they were around you and you were probably contagious the last couple days. Young children and people with weakened immune systems could spread the virus even longer than 7 days, sometimes even for 2 weeks, we're being told. There was a study a few years back saying if you are obese, you could be spreading flu longer. But flu is most contagious when you have the fever, the early onset symptoms, and you're coughing and sneezing, and your eyes are red, and you seem to be, sweaty and dirty. That is when you seem to be the most contagious. When should you go back to work? I usually like to recommend that you're off the rest of the week to play it safe. Unfortunately, people with that residual cough can still spread the virus. So, incubation time usually is a couple days. So if you were exposed to flu, you might want to consider getting on some treatment. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Don't go away.
Hey guys, it's Clyde. We've had a lot of requests for Ground Zero merchandise, so we put together an online store with a big variety of high-quality items. I'm really excited to let you know about these things. We have a lot to offer you and your loved ones. In addition to our regular apparel, such as t-shirts, beanies, hoodies, and hats, we've expanded our product line with posters, flags, aprons, mugs, and a whole lot more. We also have Ground Zero collectibles along with a limited edition of items like a Clyde Lewis canvas portrait, a Ground Zero embroidered jacket that will certainly make for great gifts and for interesting conversations with family and friends. And we now offer publications such as Ron Patton's book about mind control, MK Zine, and back copies of the official magazine of Ground Zero while it was in print. Paranoia, the Conspiracy Reader, also coming in 2023, are updated and revised books that I've written. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. So shop today at our official store by going to groundzeromerch.com. Again, that's groundzeromerch.com.
Hey, America. How tired are you of mainstream corporate media's biased narratives and manipulated news? Their dishonesty and attempts to influence this generation have been exposed, put on display for anyone who's even half paying attention. But the New American Magazine has been an honest source of news and commentary for over 50 years. This is your opportunity to receive the stalwart of principled journalism at a deep discount. Picture a beautifully published magazine arriving at your doorstep twice a month, packed with insightful stories written with integrity. It's also available digitally on the New American's mobile app. Get up to speed with intelligent coverage from a freedom perspective. Right now, for a limited time, the New American is available to radio listeners at a 25% discount on a new subscription. Visit thenewamerican.com/radio25 and receive 25% off. Subscribe today at thenewamerican.com/radio25.
Welcome back to the Dr. Dahlia Show, 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So I'm not a grandparent yet. I got 2 adult boys, and one is engaged. Really, really happy about that. So eventually, if that is what they choose to do, having babies, I would then later become a grandma. Not sure what I'm going to want to be called. I don't think I want to be called grandma. I might want to be called... there's a few different things. I'm thinking about being called Scooby. Not Scooby-Doo. I don't like Scooby-Doo, but I've always liked the name Scooby. And so maybe I'll be Scoob. Grandma Scoob. No grandma, just Scoob. Anyway, my son's not even married yet. But grandparents, it's a fascinating dynamic, the grandparents. I was just at a medical conference, And you saw families go to this conference, and you saw the kids, you saw the grandparents, and you saw the roles everybody played. And I'm starting to have friends who are grandparents. And it's interesting because all of us, we still feel like we're in our 20s. And then I'm looking at some of my friends going, this is great. I mean, you're now gramps. You're a grandpa. And they're like, dude, like, you're going to mess that kid up. But there's been studies after studies saying you're going to age slower and you're going to age better if you are a grandparent and you're involved in the child raising. We have another study that was published, I believe, in the American by the American Psychological Association. Science Daily is reporting that if you help care for your grandchildren, it may help protect you against cognitive decline. The research was published by the American Psychological Association, and they feel that the caregiving roles could support memory and thinking skills later in life. This isn't groundbreaking. We've known about this. Being active in your senior years is going to help keep you active mentally, etc. So this is a no-brainer, but it reminds us that if you have family members and you're worried that those family members are going to start struggling with cognitive decline, give them some roles. Now, I mean, if you feel like they can't drive your child safely, no, don't give them that role, but allow them to be a part of your kids' lives safely, and have them engaged with you as a family. But leaving your family member off to the wind doesn't seem to do well for them. However, if they're a threat to you or the family, that's a whole other issue. But the study was done by Dr. Chereshis and her colleagues. They looked at 2,887 grandparents who took part in the English longitudinal study of aging. All of these participants were over 50 with a mean age of 67. Each person completed surveys and cognitive assessments on 3 occasions between 2016 and 2022. They were asked if they had cared for a grandchild at any point during the previous year, and they collected information about what type of care, what type of activities, whether they watched them overnight, whether they took care of them when they were sick, whether they just played with them, helped them with their homework, took them to school, if they prepared meals, what did they do? And then they compared the test results. And the grandparents who provided childcare scored higher on measures of memory and verbal fluency than those who did not. These differences remained even after accounting for age, overall health, and other relevant factors. They said the pattern was consistent regardless of how frequently grandparents provided care or which types of caregiving activities they performed. Because that's what I was thinking. I was like, a study, that'd be really interesting for a study to show which activity gave you the most oomph. Because sometimes the kids are going to dump stuff on you as grandparent, and so you might as well get your ROI. You might as well want to get the biggest bang for your buck and say, no. If I read to the child, I get more out of it. But if you're going to have me, babysit on a Saturday night when I could go out, and watch cartoons, that's not going to be as good for me. So it'll be interesting to see which activities were the best. My guess is those where you're engaging in homework, you're teaching, if you're using more complex skills, those are going to help. Watching the kid at the recital and falling asleep, might not be as engaging. However, we talk about the grandparent gauntlet, and we'll talk more about that, where there's oftentimes other grandparents involved. And then there's this competition. Who gets more time with the grandchild? The grandchild is favoring one grandparent over another. And there are some in-laws that the children who just now have had a baby may prefer to be around or not prefer to be around. And so let's say you're a grandparent on the outside going, how do I get access to the grandchildren? How do I get to be involved? Well, one, you need to earn it. Okay, if that mom and dad that gave birth to that baby, or those 2 individuals that have a baby, do not like you, if you've been mean, if you've hurt them at all, if they think you can hurt the baby, you're not going to have access. But, if you ensure that any time you spend with that child and them is not going to be all about the guilt trips and all about the fight and the drama, they might welcome you. Another trick of the trade is be helpful. All right. Young parents need help. They need babysitting. They need breaks. They need support. And so if there is something you could do that may relieve some of that stress. Even if it's, you know what, I'll run to Target and get you some diapers. Or is there anything you need so you don't have to leave the house? Do you want to take a nap? I'll, be there for a couple hours and then I'll leave when you wake up. Work with them on how you could help. If they're like, no, I don't want anybody touching the baby but me. And some parents are going to be very controlling. I understand that. I get that. But if if there's that trust level, then you could say, can I tag along to the kids' sport or to the kids' recital? I'd like to be there, to clap and whatever. I don't have to come to your house. I don't have to. Can I meet you there? At least show support. Let that grandchild see you and let them know that you're there for support. It is very tricky if you have an in-law that doesn't like you. If your daughter or son-in-law don't want to be around you, you lose access to that child, which is why don't put yourself in a position where you pissed them off. Okay? I mean, because it's when you're overworked and exhausted young parents, don't want the drama of in-laws, they're going to not necessarily include the in-laws. So, ensure and have discussions with them. And I think that's really important communication. Say, look, this is your nuclear family. This however you want to raise your family, we are going to support. We're the grandparents, so we're an auxiliary role and ancillary role. But we want to be here to help, and we want to have a relationship with the grandchildren. And so, you decide what you're comfortable with. Let us help. But here are some ideas, if you think this could help. And here's the other thing, too. Let's say the young parents are very, non-communicative in the beginning. And let's say they're like, no, we're fine. I just want it to be us. We're just doing this our own, blah, blah, That can always change. All right. The people change. And so don't panic and don't start getting fights. If there was like a family member that wanted to be in the delivery room when I was delivering, no, I didn't want that. But that doesn't mean I don't want them ever a part of the child's life. It just, I just don't want, somebody there when I'm naked. So there's, understand that they might not necessarily like an idea now, but they might be more open to engagement and family type things later. But showing that you understand the stress they're going through and how exhausted they are and how holidays can be very stressful. One thing that a lot of young couples panic about is the time they have to spend amongst divorced parents. And so let's say they have, their mom and dad, but the mom and dad are divorced, and then the other spouse has, so now you're talking about 4 different families they have to go to. They didn't ask for their parents to be divorced. Their parents are divorced, and now there's 4 different Christmases they have to have, or Thanksgiving, or etc. So what you could be is the cool grandparent, and you could say, look, I know you got a lot going on. We could do our celebration a different day when things are more calm. And we've talked about that multiple times. But if you are a grandparent, for you to be engaged with that child, it's healthy. So try to get in there. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Don't go away. Hi, guys. Dr. Dahlia here. Addictions can sneak up on us and come in many forms, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, video games, porn, or something less obvious such as food, internet, or shopping. Addiction can seem innocent at first and then evolve into an insurmountable evil. In our book, Addiction Basics, Caitlin Kalikas and I dive into the common addictions and provide tips for identifying and preventing these before they sneak in and take over our lives. Addiction Basics can be found on Amazon or my website, drdahlia.com. Check it out.
Increase fuel economy up to 7.9% with Hot Shot Secret Gasoline Extreme, the solution to maximize your engine's performance and fuel economy. Whether you're driving a sports car or a daily commuter, Gasoline Extreme is specially formulated with PEA to deep clean. Don't settle for an average driving experience. Upgrade to Hot Shot Secret Gasoline Extreme and go further on each tank. Order now on Amazon or HotShotSecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.